Hello, thanks for joining my session today on teachers' strategies for working with coursebooks, insights from current practice. My name is Isabel Wong, and today I'm going to talk about a study I conducted to explore EFL teachers' views and actions regarding their coursebook use. The purpose of this study was to give some insights into how language teachers adapt their coursebook materials strategically to deal with their limitations. So, the plan for my session today will begin with some background information and rationale for this study. Next, I will present the research questions and then explain the methods for this study. And I also present the findings and finally the discussion of the results and the pedagogical implications. So the session will last approximately 20 minutes. By the end of the session, I will leave another 10 minutes for live Q&A. So you are also welcome to contact me for further question at this email address. I'm going to show you. Okay, so this is the email address you could contact me. Okay, so firstly, I want to give you some background for my study. So the first thing I want to talk about is the reasons for coursebook adaptation. It's unlikely that any single coursebook will fully satisfy a given teacher's pedagogical needs as well as learners' needs without adaptation. So here, there are a number of explanations have been offered as to why EFL teachers might adapt their coursebooks, such as because the coursebooks are not motivating, they don't promote enough meaningful communication, and they are culturally inappropriate for use in the local context. They lack thought-provoking activities that contribute to both language and life skills, and they have few language learning activities incorporating digital tools. So you can see it's important to adapt our coursebooks. So the literature also propose some principles for coursebook adaptation, as you can see here. So we should adapt the coursebook to be perceived as relevant by learners. So there's the first principle is to localize, our coursebook. And other principles also literature has suggested not just localize the coursebook, but also modernize, so to be up to date. Individualize, cater for difference in learning styles, and personalize, encourage learners to speak or write about themselves and their own experience. Humanize, engage the whole person, and differentiate our coursebook, so to be appropriate to learners' level, offer appropriate level of challenge. Okay. And there are also some key strategies for adapting coursebooks drawn from a body of work in this area. As we can see from this figure, the key strategies include omission. It means dropping units, sections, tests, or activities. The strategies also include addition. It means adding new materials such as tests, activities, resources, adding topics, skills, questions, and examples. Also include strategies for modification. This refers to reordering units or activities, regrouping materials, or shortening, extending, and expanding or rewriting activities or tests, altering instructions and explanations or layout. And there's also strategies for replacement. So it means replacing units, sections, tests, or activities. So given the importance of coursebook adaptation, a growing amount of qualitative research examines how EFL or ESL teachers actually adapt coursebook materials across the globe, particularly looking at the actual use of coursebooks with or without adaptation in classroom. The strategies that EFL or ESL teachers actually use for adaptation, and also the strategies for coursebook adaptation that can produce positive outcomes in student performance, and also the factors influencing the extent and nature of adaptation. For example, the factors such as the teacher's teaching experience, teacher's knowledge of the students, or teachers' beliefs about coursebook materials, and maybe their approaches to instruction. Okay, so why we conduct this study? Okay, the rationale for this study, the research literature that I have reviewed would suggest that the current research agenda can be broadened by providing more evidence of how language teachers adapt their coursebooks to enhance engagement among learners, promote communicative interaction in the classroom, develop authenticity in test and task, incorporate digitalisation into classroom practice, localize their classes, and integrate the teaching of language and life skills. So this session reports on the study conducted in Austria in the EFL second language level contest, where all the students were provided with state-funded coursebooks. What prompted this study was the lack of empirical research on teachers' experience of working with EFL coursebooks in Austria. Okay, so the study sought to address three main questions. The first one, what factors play a role in determining whether Austrian EFL teachers use coursebooks? The second question is, if they use ELT coursebook, to what extent are they involved in coursebook selection? The third question is, in what ways do they adapt these coursebooks for use in classroom instruction? Okay, so in terms of our participants, 8 female teachers of English came from 2 types of secondary school in Austria volunteered to take part in this study. As we can see from this table, so the students' age ranged from 24 to 64, okay, and their teaching experience in teaching English varied from 6 months to 32 years. And also the table indicate how supportive they were of coursebook adaptation based on the data. So they were high adapter, moderate, and low adapters. Okay. The methods. The data were obtained from semi-structured qualitative interviews, and the interview consisted of 5 sections, included questions which called on respondents to explore their general attitudes towards coursebooks and the process they engage in when selecting and using them. For example, the question we ask, do you adapt your coursebooks to enhance your students' engagement? If so, how and why? Interviews were conducted with the 8 participants individually in English, and each interview session lasted approximately 60 minutes. And using the software Atlas T, the data analysis involved a thematic analysis inspired by the literature, as well as a line-by-line coding process to allow new elements to emerge from the analysis. Okay. So the findings. In terms of the first research question regarding factors determining whether to use coursebook or not. So we found 4 key factors affecting the extent to which the Austrian EFL teachers use coursebooks, including teachers' attitudes towards coursebooks and local school policies, examination, and the attitudes of different stakeholders, such as students, colleagues, and parents. For example, okay, I put some quotation here. As the teacher Kelly put it, at my school, you have to stick with the book a lot because our tests are built on the basis of the book. So this shows examinations could have very strong backwashing effect on their teaching by leading extensive use of their coursebooks. Here's another example. The teacher Emily stated, I tell my students, okay, it's okay if we don't use a coursebook. Then we have a lot of work to do at both sides. They need to really want this. So the teacher, Emily, acknowledged that her students' attitude towards coursebook play a very important role in influencing her own choice. Okay. The second research question, if they use ELT coursebooks, the extent to which they were involved in their selection. Firstly, okay, so the data showed that most of the teachers tend to choose one coursebook through joint decisions. And they also indicate the criteria they use to select their coursebook, especially as you can see here, include its compatibility with their examination, and also the degree to which the coursebook materials could stimulate students' communicative interaction, and also include the suitability of its materials given the proficiency levels and also the cognitive abilities of the students. Okay. Secondly, okay, the data also indicated that the 2 less experienced teacher involvement in coursebook selection remained minimal given their low level of self-efficacy as to their perception of knowledge and the ability to contribute to their coursebook selection. And thirdly, Emily, okay, this teacher Emily was the only teacher who was afraid to choose their own coursebooks. And she indicated a highly active role in the coursebook selection and highlighted the national curriculum as the most important factor influencing her choice. So as we can see here, example, as she said here, my biggest criticism is that many young teachers only think about tests, but don't look at the national curriculum. Based on the curriculum, we need to think what competence students need to develop and whether our coursebook does a good job. Okay. And regarding the last research questions in terms of the ways in which EFL teachers adapted coursebooks for use in classroom instruction. And drawn from their data, I identified 6 categories of strategies the teachers use for adapting coursebooks as to compensate for their perceived limitations. So as you can see here, the first category of strategies called strategies for integrating language and life skills. For example, adding thought-provoking questions like how to create a healthy study-life balance, and including life skill topics and reflective activities. Okay, And another type of strategy is the strategies for enhancing communicative interaction. For example, adapting superficial discussion questions by inviting students to work collaboratively to generate their own questions, and or adapting the speaking activities by adding a follow-up task to the pair or group work in order to give students a purpose for communication. Okay. There's also another category was adaptation strategies for enhancing authenticity. Okay, here using authentic materials such as maps and documentary programs to supplement the coursebook materials, or turning coursebook exercise and questions into more communicative tasks. And also the strategies for enhancing learner engagement. For example, feeding students' sense of curiosity and desire to learn by using visuals and involving both cognitive and physical engagement. For example, making the writing prompts from the book into a running dictation activity. The fifth category was adaptation strategies for digitalizing coursebooks. So here are a couple of examples I selected from the data. For example, using online tools to create visuals that stimulated students' thinking or helped students visualize vocabulary or comprehend reading or listening tests, or converting the gap filling and definition matching activities from the coursebook into digital quizzes and games. And the last category was the strategies for localizing coursebooks. For example, creating locally relevant questions and locally sourced tests. For example, about Austrian teenagers' reading habits from coursebook materials presented in the unit, about British teenagers' reading habits. And we could also add in actual tasks to address the issues and queries of local students. For example, exploring differences between Austrian and Australian accented English. Okay, so now let me provide some interpretations of the findings. So firstly, as opposed to abandoning ELT coursebooks, the teachers in this study reported engaging in adaptation. So this is actually consistent with the previous literature that would suggest coursebook adaptation is a crucial determinant of their effective language teaching. And this study also suggests a further need to make coursebooks materials more localized, more digitalized, as well as to incorporate more diverse life skills into the materials. And also the findings provide rich insights into different kinds of adaptation strategies that are transferable to other possible contexts of teaching. And the quality of coursebook adaptations appear to be related not only to the intrapersonal competence, especially teacher experience and knowledge, but also the factors at the national, institutional, and instructional levels while adapting coursebooks. Okay. Regarding the pedagogical implications of this study, it highlights the importance of a bottom-up approach and suggests that language teachers need to be encouraged to take ownership of coursebooks. So in order to foster grassroots engagement in materials development, so teachers need to be encouraged to share their strategies for adaptation and their instructional materials with their peers and colleagues. For example, they could share their learning objectives related to both language and life skills here. Also, they could share, for example, the themes and activities appropriate in the given instructional situation for students from diverse cultures, and useful resources and digital tools to supplement their coursebooks, and also combining activities into projects that teach both language and life skills. Okay, so this is the end of my session, and here is the references for this study. Okay, you could check out. Well, this is the end of my presentation, and thanks for listening. And if you have any questions, you are also welcome to ask during the follow-up 10 minutes Q&A. You can also email me using the email address I provided at the beginning of this presentation. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye, and see you in the live Q&A. Bye for now.